What's going on, everybody? This is Cri Text with a brand new installment here, Cri Text Unscripted. Thank you very much for joining me for our first episode. We have a very special guest here for all of you here today. Again, this is first episode, December 21st, and we have a military veteran. We have former Infowars reporter, um, Proud Boys member, as well as, unfortunately, January 6th political prisoner. With all due respect, I want to welcome to the show Joe Biggs. Joe Biggs, thank you very much for being here with us today.
Yeah, man, no problem, man. Thanks for having me on. Sorry, my voice a little scratchy. I sing, so I've been doing competitions and stuff like that, so my voice goes out from time to time.
You're singing?
Yeah, I've been singing since I was little.
Really? Like making music or like carols or church or?
No, like I'll do like competitions, things like that. I'm trying to get a band started around here. I write music, lyrics and all that stuff.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's one thing I didn't know about you, Joe, that you make music. You obviously make music as well, and that's very interesting. I like that a lot. Maybe we'll talk about that some more. Um, But just to paint a picture for everybody here as to why you're here, how you've influenced my life, I just want to kind of throw it out there for everybody. I grew up here in Lowell, Massachusetts, and very democratic area. Wasn't too, you know, too much of a big fan of it. But I'd say probably around 2014, 2015. I had a neighbor who was my best friend. His name was Phil, and rest in peace. He passed away a couple of years ago, but he was older. He was retired, and he had all of the time in the world to just go online on YouTube, mainly Rumble as well, and just look at all sorts of reports, journalists, conspiracy theories, left wing stuff, right wing stuff. And I'd say that his main channel, his main thing around that time was definitely Infowars. And I got to say that Infowars, Alex Jones, Joe Biggs, Rob Dew, David Knight, Margaret Howell, Leanne McAdoo, that was like
Akari Jackson.
peak. Yeah, that was like peak Infowars. It was awesome watching you guys every single day, but plenty of others outside of the Infowars spectrum. Um, and before you were in Infowars, you were serving in the military. Is that correct?
Yeah, so like when 9/11 happened, my best friend, my brother, he joined the Marines and I was still too young. Not really like young in age, but just young in mind, not quite ready to take that step. And he gets shot on a mission over there. And I grew up as soon as I found out. And I reached out to some friends and family, and my mom had already been bitching at me about growing up and getting a real job. I was DJing nightclubs in west coast of Florida, in Ybor City and Tampa, Sarasota, all that stuff. And she's like, you need to get a real job. And I was like, you know what? She didn't know about all this stuff that had happened, but I go, when you come home today, I'm going to have a job. And I went straight to the recruiter station and signed up. And I was in basic training within 6 months. I was in Iraq within a year.
Wow, things got pretty serious pretty quick there.
Well, yeah, I mean, in that time, from like, let's say, '03 to '06, '07, those were like some of those hardcore times in Iraq. And I was there for that, like the when things were really, really bad, when it was fucking balls to the wall, everyone's dying, people are getting blown up. And I actually, my first deployment, I'm at what's called a bazaar, and they're these like flea markets, in the Middle East in Iraq. And I think I'm buying the Jean-Claude Van Damme DVD, but instead it's actually Loose Change, a documentary about 9/11. And I watch it in my hooch, and it kind of changes my perspective on stuff. And I start going like, why am I here? What am I doing here? This doesn't make any sense. Um, I don't get it. And I started questioning stuff and was really starting to piss off, the leadership, that I had. A lot of my soldiers were skeptical at first, and I would get them to watch the video, and they were all kind of like, "Oh man, crazy." So that really changed my life. Here I am, I sign up for the military. I'm over here fighting a war that I believe that I'm supposed to be there for. And then I watch this movie and I start going, I don't think we should be here. Like, why are we here? I mean, actually, didn't the people in Afghanistan, so to say, actually attack us? What does this have to do with Iraq?
Yeah.
And you start kind of going down that rabbit hole. And it's a hard place to go down a rabbit hole when you're in combat because you're already there.
Mhm.
There's only one way home. And there's two ways home: in a body bag, or you know, making it through alive, and getting back there. So you learn quickly to, most guys, if you ask them, they're not fighting for their country. They'll say that because it sounds good on TV, but at the end of the day, you're fighting for the guy to the left and right of you. It really has nothing to do with, the country at that point in time. When bullets are flying, no one's thinking about America the Brave and the, Constitution and anything at that point, man. You're trying to get home and make sure your friends and family are there, uh, you know, for you. So it's a lot to take on, especially when I was young as I was. I was 20 years old, I believe, at that time. So here I am, making this life-changing decision to join, and then I kind of get red pilled, in the middle of a deployment by some little fucking Iraqi kid who just, decided to be sneaky and slide, what is it, loose change into my DVD instead of Jean-Claude Van Damme, and it changed my life. And I started looking at things differently and challenging narratives and being more skeptical. It broke me from the mindset that, you know, the government is good, that they're there to help us, and it made me understand that that's just not the case. That they are nefarious, and all they care about is money and power, and holding that money and power, and growing that money and power. And I really started questioning, my being there, and it was frustrating and it was hard to deal with while you're over there.
That's that's a crazy story. I can't believe, especially it was like a surprise of you getting that video. And it's kind of funny how it's the same thing for me. Actually, the exact same video, loose change, was what woke me up. But I was much younger. I think it must have been like 2002, maybe 2003 or something like that. I was like third, fourth grade or something. Um, my dad, I was in the computer room playing like a video game or something like that. And my dad comes in and he's like, "Shut this down. I got to show you something. I got to show you something." And he throws on this video. And after a couple of minutes, I realized it was a documentary. But yeah, I just throw in this video and it was loose change. And my whole world crumbled around me. I'm sure you might have got the same kind of feeling where it was like, this is all fake. Um, it was certainly shocking. And you were seeing combat when you saw that, so that must have been even more shocking.
What's
Um,
weird is like all the references to the Matrix. I mean, it fits perfect, because it's like here we are, we live in this world. We've been force fed all these lies our entire life that America's the freest country. It's not. We have the greatest justice system. We don't. Israel's our greatest ally. It's not. And you're force fed all this stuff your entire life, and then you come to the conclusion that it's all a lie. Everything is fake and gay. Everything is one big
yeah.
psyop. Every time you walk outside, you are literally in a psyop, and it's up to you to educate yourself to understand what propaganda is, and mind control and dark psychology, so you can see through it. When it's like the They Live movie, with Roddy Piper. You've got to
Yep.
be able to put those glasses on and actually see the truth. And all the other idiots out there, they don't. That's why they say ignorance is bliss. You have all these people in the Matrix walking around, and they don't care if what everything around them is fake or not, as long as it doesn't affect their life and their day-to-day, routine. They don't give a shit. But there are people being genocided and systematically removed and targeted and tortured and MK Ultra, and black-sided and disappeared. And it's just like most people don't give a shit. And like, for me, I think once those glasses are on, and the veil's removed and you can see the truth, you can't unsee it. And it becomes this obsession where you just want to fuck the system and fight back, and you want to see what's really out there, and you want other people to see what it is, to notice, to wake up, to understand that this is all, one big simulation, and we're all just kind of like, either you're part of it or you're part of the resistance.
Mm-hmm. No, 100%. I think that I did feel like I was in a free country as a kid and that we could do whatever we really wanted. But once I saw that video, I felt like we were like kind of in a fenced in area where we're free to do whatever we want in this, circumstance, in this area. And as soon as you step out of bounds and you start saying the wrong thing and start pointing out the wrong people, um, it can get serious real quick for you. So you were seeing combat, you saw that video, you started to see reality for what it was. What was your transition like between going from the military to journalism or even Infowars?
Well, I go to Iraq, come back, go to Iraq again, and then I go to Afghanistan. And in Afghanistan, I meet a man named Michael Hastings, who was a reporter, who is uh, he was working for Rolling Stone, Men's Journal, GQ. He writes his own books. He was doing an expose on John Brennan. Barack Obama at the time had kicked him off Air Force One numerous times for being a real journalist. He was exposing all the drone wars and stuff that were going on. Obama won the Nobel Peace Prize, but he actually killed more people with drones and deported more people than any other president ever. A side note, like, Obama is probably the most successful president at getting his agenda accomplished out of any president ever. He said he wanted to systematically change America, and he has. We still have remnants of his presidency with a large grip on this country within the DOJ, the FBI, the IRS, the CIA, everything. Obama's there. And I was in Afghanistan when that change happened, when we went from Bush to Obama, and it was rough. Like, I went from my rules of engagement being to, if you're fired at, you can fire back, to if you're fired at, you can fire back unless they're in a mosque, and then you can't shoot at the mosque. So then what they do is they get smart, change their tactics, and they launch attacks from a mosque and get away with impunity. And there's nothing you can do. In the Obama DOJ, the court martials, all that stuff, they will, throw you in the brig. They will ruin your life if you actually try to defend yourself against these lunatics. So it became difficult. It was like trying to fight a war with your hands tied behind your back, blindfold on, earmuffs, while you're being tased and starved. It was insane. One minute they'd have us guarding opium fields, and next minute they wouldn't. They'd have us burning it, the same one down that we were guarding for months, and people died looking after. So
Wow.
it all fucks with your head. And when I got hurt, and when I got out after being medically retired, my buddy that I told you about just now, Michael Hastings, he eventually comes back from Afghanistan, comes to the US, writes a book called The Operators, which becomes a TV show with Brad Pitt. But also, um, he writes another article that the book goes along with, but the article comes first, for Rolling Stone, called The Runaway General. And it was about his time with General McChrystal, who was the leading commander of international forces in Afghanistan. And when I left Afghanistan, Michael Hastings left my unit. His plane gets diverted to Paris, France, because the big Icelandic volcano that was going off, it stopped all the international travel from Europe to the US back then, around 2009. So instead of him making it, our plane got to the US, and then that volcano goes off. So he's trying to get home. He can't. They send him to Paris, and they put him on a mission with McChrystal to film him, talk to him, interview his aides and all that stuff. Well, he goes up to him straight up, like Michael does, and goes, "Look, man, I'm here. I don't want to be here, but I got to do this report. What can I, you know, have you say on record and not?" And McChrystal looked at him and said, "You can write down whatever it is we say. If you're around and you hear it, you can write it down. I don't care." So I guess there's one moment when McChrystal says that Obama is like, an idiot, and Obama sees the article. It's huge. It gets so big that Obama can't ignore it, and he has to fire General McChrystal. And when a general gets fired, it's not just the general that gets fired, it's his whole entourage. People don't know that, some do, but that all these colonels and people, it's like, you have that great white shark and all those little fish that hang under it for scraps. And that's what it is. So when McChrystal lost his job, these other guys lost their job and their image was tarnished. Their career was tarnished because of what he had said and was written down and put in that article. So when Michael gets back home, he starts getting death threats and he calls me and he's worried and we're talking for a while. Um, IPCS, which means permanent change of station. I go from Fort Bragg to El Paso to Fort Bliss. And in that time, he's calling me and saying, I'm worried, things are getting really weird. I end up getting out of the Army, medically retired for injury sustained in combat. And when I get back to North Carolina to where my mom is, he sends me an email one night and goes, don't be surprised if the FBI comes to you and interviews you based on the stuff that I'm working on. He was working on exposing John Brennan, Barack Obama, and a lot of other things. And sure enough, a few hours later that night, I go to sleep. I get a call from a friend who's crying and says that Michael's dead and his car blew up in Hollywood. I don't know, it was like around 2, 3 in the morning, something like that, at his steering wheel. His steering wheel exploded and killed him. The engine was launched about 100 yards out of the vehicle. Until this day, they still say that that's an accident, but I know that's not the case. So your question was, how did I transition from the military to journalism? It was because of this. I wanted to get out the truth about what I believed happened with Michael. So I started going on the news. I released the email that Michael sent to me to KTLA, the Fox affiliate in Los Angeles. They picked it up. Megyn Kelly had me on CNN, all this stuff. And eventually Alex saw that and heard about that incident and had me come on. And over a course of 6 months, we talked. I would do you or Skype or whatever onto his show, and then eventually he asked me to come to Austin. We became friends, and then he offered me a job. And I go, look, man, I don't know anything about journalism. He goes, good. He goes, all the people who go to school for journalism, they suck because they've been brainwashed by the establishment to do exactly what they want, to be controlled and to not think for themselves. He goes, all you have to do to be a good journalist is look at the camera and tell the truth about what you saw. And I go, okay, sounds easy. And he goes, I'll hire you. I'll pay you this. Will you do it? And I said, yeah. I just got out of the Army. It's hard for guys when they get out of the military to get jobs. There's this whole stigma that we're all stupid or crazy or have all these issues. So a lot of employers don't want to give guys like us a chance, especially combat guys. So to have that opportunity, I was very grateful. So I jumped in a moving truck, left Charlotte, and drove cross country to Austin, Texas, and that's where it started. And my first big gig, I guess, would be the Ferguson riots, the shooting of Michael Brown that happened, the hands up, don't loot
Mhm.
whole thing, or hands up, don't shoot. And I sat there for a long time and for months covering that stuff. I was one of the only white guys out there. I was by myself. And we kind of like created this whole new genre of journalism during this because I was walking around with these vests that I made with all these little battery packs, and I had cell phones attached to different cameras and poles or whatever. And I'm running around live streaming for 12, 14 hours a day, hardly eating, hardly drinking. And I'm just a robot, just going, going, going like a machine. And everybody's watching. We're getting millions and millions of views. And it just became this thing where I fell in love with it because it gave me a sense of, uh, like self-worth, that I was doing something that was important. Um, and again, it was, when you're in the military, you have most of us that stay in there for a long time, you become adrenaline junkies, especially if you've seen combat or if you're airborne, air assault, anything like that, where you're used to a high speed, high pace type of environment. It's hard when you come back to the civilian world where you're just sitting around and doing nothing. So to have this opportunity where I could get thrown back into the danger again in the middle of these riots and film and talk to people, I fell in love with it and I threw everything I had into it. And it was great. And it just worked out, and God works in mysterious ways and put me in a spot that, gave me a skill that I never thought I would want or need, and a passion for something I never even knew about, and Alex told me, he goes, look, I'm gonna hire you, but you still gotta prove yourself and earn your spot here. And he
Mhm.
told me, like you got a month to learn how to edit videos and film. So when
Oh,
I first got there, I'm sitting there watching videos on YouTube. I learned how to use every Adobe program, Premiere, all that stuff. And I had to sit there and learn and be patient and do my job while learning this stuff because the end game there at the time, I don't know how they are now. I haven't, been around them as much since I've been home, but you're a one man army. You've got to be able to film, talk, be on camera, narrate, make commercials, film the videos, edit them, break them down, work on the audio, work on the lower thirds and the bugs, and create all the different graphics and stuff like that, and do that yourself. Like most guys, if you look at a guy like Jesse Waters when he was in the field before he became, the news desk anchorman guy, he would be walking around with a whole crew of people, and entourage. They'd have one guy holding an umbrella over his head, and he would just go, "You go do this. You go get this shot." No, there's none of that at Infowars, man.
mhm,
You got to get your own B-roll. You got to learn how to have that eye, how to film, how to pick out spots for good backgrounds. You got to know how to work your audio. You got to know all about the electronics, the cameras, all that. So, you meet someone who's ever worked there and they've been out there, you've seen them. That's a guy with some skill. I can tell you that.
mhm.
It's like the Navy SEALs of journalism, and it's that's kind of out there, but it is. I mean, because you really are put through the ringer and you got to do everything by yourself that most journalists out there can never do. Not a single person on CNN or Fox News could do half the stuff that we could do, and we could do it all on our own. So, kudos to him for that, to push us to that level, to make us better that way. But that's how I got into that.
That is interesting. I didn't know that about Infowars. I thought they had a little bit of a bigger team, but I get it. I wish that all I could do is get into my booth and just rap. But there is the recording, there is the audio editing, making the music video, making the promotions, the advertisements. Yeah, it's certainly a lot. So I get that aspect, but that's very interesting. What is it like working for a guy like Alex? I'm sure you've never met anybody like Alex before, right? He's one of a kind, right?
He's a savant. He is a genius.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't know how to predict things, but what he is, and here's what people don't understand. Some people will call him a prophet, or that he's you know a genius, and he is smart because his intellectual capacity is, he is good at remembering everything, every
Yeah,
detail. Once he's read it and seen it, he can remember it. And then once you have that much information memorized, it's like putting a puzzle together. When you start understanding patterns and you have that pattern recognition and certain politicians, certain countries, you can start to predict what's going to happen in the future. And that's what he has, this uncanny ability to read and then retain that knowledge and keep it forever. Like he's very rarely off and has to be corrected on a date, time, specific thing that an incident happens. He can remember reports he's read from the 80s and 90s to the T still. So, you know, people out there that attack him and say that he's a fraud, they just don't understand. He is light years above them and can run circles around them
yeah,
um, in that capacity. And he is great at what he does. And he does make a lot of things theatrical. He is that way. I mean, he doesn't want to sit there and be a drone and tell you things because it's hard for you know society today. We've been dumbed down for so long that we have to have all this flashy stuff to keep our attention. If not, we're not going to pay attention. So
yeah.
that's why Alex brings in that theatrical sense to it, the screaming and yelling, because today, in order to get someone's attention and then have them remember what it is you said, it's got to stick out. It's got to stand out, and it's got to create a memory that they'll always have in their head, so they remember that, and then they end up learning something based on that because they go, "Oh man, I remember when Alex. Oh yeah, he was talking about this, and now they can remember that." So he understands the psychology of that, and you have to understand that just because someone's being theatrical like that doesn't mean they're not being genuine or truthful.
Hmm.
Um, you know, embellishing the truth is still telling the truth as long as you're being honest and telling the truth. You could, say it in such a way that it seems a little bit more than what it was, but sometimes in this world, that's kind of what you have to do to like maintain audience participation. And
Yeah.
that's the big thing nowadays is how can I keep an audience's attention for that long every day for this long? And Alex has been able to do it better than anyone else.
It's one of my favorite things to watch is those memes of Alex Jones just flipping out. That turn of the freaking frog's gay. And it's like, yeah, I'm always gonna have that in my mind. You know what I mean? Now always remember,
Yeah, I'm
glyphosate.
lucky. I'm lucky. I got to be there for a lot of that stuff and watch
Mhm.
that happen and sit in the background and go, what the fuck is this guy doing? Like, he's crazy. But it's genius though, because the shit he does is he's telling the truth, but he says it in such a, you know, outlandish, crazy way that you can't just help but, laugh and sit there and look at your coworkers and go, man, this dude is, you're literally watching, you know, a genius at work right there, and it's interesting. I learned a lot from the guy, So
He lets it all out. No, he certainly knows how to ride those memes very well, and it all works out in his favor. God bless the guy. He's one of my heroes as well as you. Um, so let's see. So you were working for Infowars. Um, and actually, this is a very interesting question. I think we all know Jordan Maxwell, right? Rest in peace. Um, I guess he was like one of David Icke's close friends a long time ago, and he was in conspiracy theories, talking about world events, esoteric information. And one of the things that I saw him talk about on one of his videos one day was that they approached him one day, and they even brought him into a Freemason lodge one time, and they said that we've been watching you. We want you to keep talking about everything that you're talking about. However, you talk about whatever you want. However, there's just this one thing that we don't want you to talk about, and as long as you don't talk about this one thing, we'll leave you alone. And so Jordan Maxwell passed away of old age, I believe. Um, I've always wanted to know what that one thing was. Think I have an idea, but question for you is, even with everything that happened with Michael, everything in the services, and then also working for a place like Infowars, have you ever been approached by them?
nah, man. I mean, I kind of pissed off. Kind of wish that them would come up to me and you know say something, but I guess I was never appealing enough for them to come to thee. Because I'd always like to pick a person's brain like that. That you know, I've had threats. I mean, I've literally had guys in suits come up to me and say, you need to stop speaking. Um, I had actually, or I guess I have. So this since I've been home from prison, I found out that a certain group within the DoD was actually there on January 6th working in the crowd, and it's a unit you're not supposed
Mhm.
to talk about. And I brought it up a few times on air, on shows, and I had a guy in a suit when I was giving a speech. Um, Come up to me just right at the end of the show and say, "Look, man, you need to stop talking about this. We're being serious." And he just turned around and walked off and left.
Huh.
So I mean, I guess it's kind of like that in a sense, but not really. But there are things that you can talk about that will start to make some of these people nervous, and the last thing that they want is for people to know they exist. Because the easiest way for the real people who are empowered to exist is for no one to know that they do exist, and they keep it that way, and they do it by threats and or dying of a heart attack or somehow shitting yourself to death on the toilet.
Hmm.
It's something random that happens that can't be led back to them. So um there's a lot of powers that play out there. It's not just the Rothschilds. It's not just the who we perceive as the Illuminati, so to say, or you know a lot of these crazy people within the government. But there's all types of different people out there that have been around for a long time, power hungry, and trying to grow that power and their influence and to get richer. And if you shine a light on what they are doing and who they are, they will send a message.
Yeah,
I think Michael
definitely.
figured that one out, and a lot of other people.
I had a neighbor at one point. His grandfather used to be in the Freemasons, and my neighbor told me that he'd never been a part of it or never thought of being a part of it, but he said that he was at work one time, and these two men in suits just walked up to him at his job, I think it was like he was like grinding metal or something like that. But these two people approached him. They said, "Hi," and they knew his name and everything. They were like, "We want you to join the Freemasons. We look at you. We think that you have great potential, and you also have George Washington's eyes." I'm like, what kind of fucking weird thing to say to someone? You know what I mean? You have George Washington's eyes, like to recruit someone. I have no idea. There's just some weird people, and we actually have a lodge here in Lowell, Massachusetts, across from the city hall and across from the police department. And there's always police cars going there, going in and out. I don't know, just really really weird vibes. I've been told by Lowell city officials that there are tunnels underneath the city, and I'm sure we've always heard that there's city tunnels underneath like most cities in the United States. So it's just creepy stuff. But I was just curious. I hope I don't get approached by them one day. We'll see how big I get, but I do tend to mouth off and say some of the things that most people would see like on Infowars or some of the new podcasts we see these days. Um, but
A lot of people are easily intimidated. I'm not. So I mean, if someone comes up to me and threatens me, I mean that the day that that guy kind of made like this, threat, I immediately went on the show and talked about what he told me not to, and I did it again the next day. So, like, I think that's why a lot of people don't come to me is because the same thing when I was in prison. I was never offered a plea. I was never approached. Period, because they knew that I would tell them to go get fucked. So that's just a reputation I have. I don't bow or bend to
Mhm.
anybody. You know, I bow before God. I salute the flag. And that's it. Everyone else can bugger off.
Good on you, man. Good on you. Yeah, no, that's I suffer from migraines. I get like migraines like every single day. I wish I joined the military, and if it was even sooner, I would have tried to join the Space Force. That seems so cool to me. But I probably would have been turned away because of my migraines. It's probably something that they don't want. But
Yeah, I wanted to go into human intelligence, psychological operations.
what was that?
I said I really wanted to go into human intelligence, psychological operations. When I first joined, I didn't really know much about the Army. So I just asked the recruiter, what do you guys need? And I let him pick my job for me. And I went and did what they wanted. But after being in there, and now what I know and what I'm into, I think that would have been cool to have that kind of training and understanding of how the military, mind fucks people, Jedi mind tricks them, the different ways they do that, and then also just an understanding of the human psyche in general. I think that's an important skill set to have now, because like I said, everything is a psyop. Every time you walk
Mhm.
out that door, you're literally being fucked with. Everything that you see on the internet is nonstop
Yeah.
psyop all the time. It's propaganda shoved down your face. So I wish I could have done that.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I mean, good. I mean, obviously, you really wanted to serve your country because you were like, "Listen, just put me where you need me." But yeah, a lot of things come out today. Everybody's talking about psychological operations, and yeah, a lot of my friends and family have called me a nutcase for like going out in public, and I'm always like pointing out symbology or etymology, like where words come from, where things come from. They're like, Chris, like pipe down, you know what I mean? You gotta you gotta chill a little bit. Um, but
Is it is it
uh-huh.
Laurel War? Is it Laurel War that that movie Fighters about?
Yeah, yep, yep, Mickey Ward,
Yeah, I thought
good
I knew
show,
that
man.
name.
Yeah, he's a good guy. He's a good guy. I met his brother too. They're both good peeps. Um, So moving forward in your life, you transitioned, or I'm not too sure if it was much of a transition, if there was much of a period in between, but you went from what I saw from Infowars to the Proud Boys. What was that transition like? How long was that transition? What was that? What did that all entail?
So when I was working at Infowars, I leave. My mom gets cancer. My daughter's born, and my mother's husband had just died from non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. So I knew she was going through this. She's all alone, and sometimes in life we have to give up our passions in order to make sacrifices to make other people feel good, to feel loved, and to also just to be there for him and help him. And I knew that, having a granddaughter around while she's going through this would lift her spirits up, and to see her first steps and all that, it would make it easier for her to have those memories and to see those things while she's going through all this stuff. So I left and moved back over to the East Coast. Well, some of the final months or so when I was in at Infowars in Austin, there was a hurricane that hit, and it's the first time I meet Enrique Tarrio. This is before he's a chairman, and he's just down there as one of the a bunch of the guys from South Florida came up to Texas to Houston to help with the hurricane, with the relief effort. They brought food, water. They had their own little boats, and they were doing rescues, and because the whole city was underwater, so they were driving around on boats and picking people up off the roofs of their houses and getting them to safety. And he hit me up because someone that he knew someone that knew me either way. I get his number, he gets mine, and he's like, "Hey man, if you want to come down here and cover this, I'm with this group. They're called the Proud Boys, and we're new, and all this is going on." So I jump in the car, drive down there, meet him, and it was instantaneous. It's like him and I were just, meant to be friends forever. And it's just like it's kind of like that scene in Step Brothers, like we just become best friends. Yep, yep. And it was just like that. It was weird. It was this instantaneous thing. We both had this connection, and we've been tight ever since. But I say that to say this. So I meet him there, and then eventually he comes back to Austin at the state capitol there. I'm giving a speech with a lot of people at the capitol, and he comes to listen. And then that night after the event, we all had this get together at a rooftop bar in downtown Austin, and him and a bunch of his guys come up there. And I'm hanging out with a buddy of mine, Outlaw Morgan, uh, uh, David Rodriguez. He's a heavyweight boxer guy, and a few other guys from Infowars and some other friends of mine. And these guys show up, and they're all doing all their their Proud Boy stuff, their chants and shit. And I'm like, what are these guys doing? They all seem like a fun group of dudes. And they're like, come on, man, let's make you a member. Let's make you a member. And I'm like, nah, good. I don't want to join anything. And I drink more Jaeger, and eventually decided to get jumped in. And I go through like the beginning process, and they bring me in, and then eventually I get made the Austin chapter president. Um, and then Charlottesville happens, and the very next weekend I'm supposed to be speaking in Boston at the Boston Commons with Gavin McGinnis, uh, Cassandra Fairbanks, Milo, whole lot of stuff. Well, the
Oh, I remember that.
yeah.
I was there. I was in the crowd.
Oh yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, I was up there. Yeah, they had like 60,000 people show up try to kill me. It was crazy.
Oh my
But
goodness.
the Charlottesville thing happened, so everybody backs out and goes, "It's not tasteful for us to go." And I go, "For what reason?" I go, "Did you kill that girl?" I was like, "Did you have anything to do with that? Then why are you stopping because that happened?" I mean, that's exactly the response they want you to have. They want something that just happened, they can blow out of proportion and then get you scared to not want to go exercise your rights as an American.
Mhm.
I go, every time we cower down, we're giving them an inch, and we cower too much, and inches have turned into miles at this point, as Americans. So I'm done. I'm done giving them another inch of my life, or of my rights. So I choose to stand up every time. So I told them all to go get fucked, and they said, you know what, if you're not gonna, or Gavin was like, uh, I'm gonna disavow anybody that goes to this or whatever. And I was like, you know what, fuck it, dude. So I quit the Proud Boys right there immediately. And I said,
Wow.
I've only been in for like a month. So I was like, fuck this. I go to this event, and nothing. And then the whole thing with my mom happens. I moved to Florida. Well, I go and cover this event at the University of Central Florida. Yeah, no, University of South Florida, which is in Orlando, which is weird because that's central. But I go to this event, and it's like an anti-Sharia thing that's happening, and I run into the local Proud Boys chapter for my county where I live, Volusia County, and I go, man, these guys are actually like cool dudes, and like I like these guys. So I get back in, and all of them are like, man, who cares about what happened there? Don't worry about it. And they all voted to bring me in, and I came back in, and from there I started like really understanding the group, what they're about, and fell in love with the what it was. And and I saw a lot of potential for the group, so I started helping, what do you call it, like organizing different events all over the country. As someone who worked at Infowars, I had a lot of connections, and I've traveled all over the world. So, and being in the military, it was just kind of like a thing for me. I just kind of took control of helping plan a lot of these events. I would reach out to Enrique. He's now the chairman at this point, and we just start planning stuff. We do the End Domestic Terrorism rally in Portland. We do a couple of those. We do uh, another one, a demand free speech in Washington D.C. at the Freedom Plaza, and everything's going good. Everything's going great, and it was fun. I enjoy it. I still talk to a lot of those guys. I still love all of them to death, man. It is it's been an interesting life, so to say.
I bet. I bet. I am a big fan of the Proud Boys. But doing this interview, I try my best to tell all my friends and family. Of course, we all have Democrats in our families and friends sometimes, right? And I was shocked that some people didn't support Proud Boys, because correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding was that the Proud Boys was a direct response to Antifa hurting innocent people, and Proud Boys was like kind of like a defense against that. Like we wanted to like kind of just answer to Antifa's violence, basically. Am I right?
No, so originally the Proud Boys are created by Gavin McGinnis as kind of a joke. Him and his friends are in Manhattan. They're seeing this musical, Aladdin, and there's a song on there, "Proud of Your Boy." Either way, they'd already been toying with having like a group, because Gavin does stand up comedy, he travels around, does different shows and speeches and stuff, and he wanted to have a brotherhood of guys that he can meet with every time he goes to a new city, when he does these shows, where he's not just sitting by himself drinking alone or whatever. So he creates this group, and then after seeing the musical and hearing the song, they go, "Oh, let's call it the Proud Boys," because the main song is called "Proud of Your Boy." So it all kind of gets, this group that's had so much impact on our country was created from a joke by a couple, friends, who like to drink and go out and have fun. And then it changed. The group was created as a drinking group, right? To go out, they have tenants. It's kind of like, different degrees and all that, like other clubs have. But they did that because they were making fun of these other groups, and all the things that you have to do to make it higher up in the club are funny. Like, you've got to get punched until you can name, like, five breakfast cereals or whatever, and it's just like there's nothing serious really about it.
Mm-hmm.
But what it was able to do was, this club was able to, once it was created, it gave guys who were like-minded a chance to go, man, I want to be part of that. And then it
Mm-hmm.
kind of connected the whole country together, in a sense that we're now, if I want to go to Chicago, I could call up the Illinois state, president or whatever like that, and go, "Hey, I'm going to be in Chi-Town for this amount of time. Get me a fucking, if you know somewhere I can stay, or get me a couch, let me know." So it's created like this network, and I can travel all over the world now and find a place to stay with a brother or something like that. They'll open their doors, and that's what it was always supposed to be. Well, then Trump announces his presidency, and he starts doing his rallies. Well, we start seeing people, we're watching TV, many of us, and we're seeing people being attacked, assaulted, food thrown at them, their dinners interrupted, they're screaming and cussing in front of families and their children, and they're acting like a bunch of degenerate retards. So after so long, a lot of the guys within the club were like, "Man, look, we're a bunch of guys, you know, we can put down the beers for a little bit and maybe go help some people." And
Mm-hmm.
so they can go and listen to this guy speak and decide whether or not they want to vote for him. So there's that aspect. We were created as a joke for a drinking club, but it did morph. Every time you create something, it has a mind of its own. When you have a child, you grow up with aspirations of your son or daughter, that they're going to do this or that, but that little bugger gets a mind of its own and decides to go its own way to do its own thing, right? So it's the same thing with a club. It was created to be a drinking club, and a lot of the guys within the club still treat it that way. Each group is autonomous. So there's a set of standards and bylaws that you have to abide by, and then there's you know, uh, a checklist of things you have to do to become a member. But after that, each chapter has their ability to do what they want. They can be what's called party boys, where all they do is drink and hang out, a couple times a month and have get-togethers, or they can do rallies like we like to do and go to these protests and stand up and fight back against the narrative, the leftist Marxist ideologies, the trans shit, all that, the open immigration borders. So the club morphed, but then it kind of split. So you've got two aspects of it.
Hmm.
And I think that's what makes it neat is like you can join and be like, you know what, I don't want to have my face out there. I just want to sit around and be a dad, but then have like a night out with the guys once or twice a month with some guys that are like minded, and you have that option. So it's not just clearly like we weren't born out of necessity because of Antifa, but that happened and we kind of split off, and a lot of us decided that we would go stand up and put ourselves in front of those punches being thrown, and that we would be the ones who took them so these other people can go and exercise their ability to listen to a potential, or a presidential candidate speak, a potential president, and see what this, person has to say. And, we did that and we got good at it.
I'm very glad that y'all did because I really did not like seeing people's grandmothers get hit by crowds. It was just a sick, disgusting thing. Do they have very curious now? Do they have a Boston chapter?
Yeah.
Oh, I might need their contact information
You
after
go
this
to you go to
chat.
proudboysusa.com, and then you click
Okay.
on the state and you find your area, and then there'll be an email. You reach out to that chapter president, and there'll be a process from there.
All right. I'll have to take a shot of Jaeger to get my in.
I don't drink Jaeger anymore. It makes me crazy. But yeah.
um So, the meat and the potatoes. I know we're running a little bit of time here, but meat and the potatoes of this whole thing. I think, just personally, some people might say that I'm a little bit extreme, but I think that January 6th was probably the most beautiful day I've ever seen in my life, and I think that it was a shame that anybody who was not, you know. Um, breaking property, smashing windows or anything like that, was arrested. Of course, if you're breaking property, you got to handle whatever comes with that arrest. But for the most part, most people going into a public building or being on public property, I don't think that that should have been something to be arrested for. My question for you is like, just because there was so much happening and so many people were there, what were the charges on January 6th to you? And what were you actually doing?
Um, Trespassing, parading, picketing, staying in an unauthorized area for, a long time. And that was initial. And then I get obstruction, or yeah, obstruction of an official proceeding, which is a 20-year sentence. That's where they use this code, the statute from the Enron trial, where people were intimidating witnesses, which there was none of that happening, but somehow the judges in DC didn't care. They said that we were trying to stop the certification of the election, and then therefore for that to be proven, there'd have to be some proof that we had talked about that and planned. But that didn't matter because then they add conspiracy to it. Then they start upping the charges, and I went from having three misdemeanors to having like 15 or 13 felonies with uh, a time of like 36 years behind bars. This happened very quickly. They originally told me I was going to get nothing, a slap on the wrist, and don't ever trespass again. And then the story just kept morphing, and it just happened so fast and escalated so quickly. There's nothing scary in the world than seeing your name versus the United States of America on a piece of paper. Because when they have you in DC and the courts there, they own you. They can do whatever they want. They are corrupt to the core. The juries are just like them. They're the same type of people. Most of the jurors, when we're there, all had government jobs. So they're part of that problem, part of that cancerous tumor. The judge knows the prosecutor. They're hanging out. They're all friends.
Yeah.
The judge's wife worked for the mayor, Mayor Bowser. So there were all these conflict of interest that normally would keep a man from doing his job, but in DC that does not matter because there are no standards. There is no right or wrong. There is only they have to win, you have to go down, and that's it.
It's just saddening. It's very saddening, especially since you served our country. Like on behalf of our country, I have to apologize for your service in the military. I feel like even Infowars was a great service. Proud Boys as well, protecting people. And then you go to jail, prison. And I'm sorry, like on behalf of our country, that should have never happened to you or anybody. For the most part, people's grandmothers were in there. Um, it was just a
Yep.
very, very sad thing. You served 2 years, 2.5. Is that correct? Or you
No,
did the full 4?
yeah, I did 4. I was one of the first ones in there. Um,
Wow. Did you get arrested that day or a couple days later?
no, a little afterwards. So let me see. January 6th happens. January 20th is the day Biden took office, is the day that the FBI came for me. So he puts his hand on the Bible that morning, swears within an hour they're raiding my house, and I'm in handcuffs, going to Orlando, being escorted by the FBI to go be arraigned. I'm initially put on home confinement because the judge says this is going to be moving to DC, so there's nothing I can really do. So you can stay at home with this giant ankle monitor on. I get home, we have to do a detention hearing with the new judge. I hear that he's a Trump appointee, so I have a little hope. That was pointless. He was part of the same system. Initially, the prosecutors had this doctored video and say that I broke a fence, that I was part of the initial breach. I was nowhere near the first breach. It was way behind me. Then they said that the second one that I helped rip it down, and so end up getting charged with conspiracy to uh, destroy government property and destruction of government property. Um, And in the video, you see there's clearly Ray Epps to the right of me who breaks it, but they glitch the video out. And then as the fence is going down, the video unglitches out of the green, and it just goes down in front of me. And you just see me doing like this. And they go, "Oh, see, he did it." Well, the judge sees it the first time and goes, "I don't think that's what happened. I need to see the whole video. This looks like BS." So he lets me stay on home confinement. Well, the prosecution pitches a fit. They get to Merrick Garland, and eventually they have another detention hearing very soon. Very shortly after that initial one we have there, they show the same video again, and this time though, Judge Kelly calls me a terrorist and sentences me, or says that I should be held in pretrial detention and put in jail immediately. So they get to
Wow.
him. You can tell that they get to him because his entire demeanor, how he thought about that video the first time versus what happened the second time, was a complete 180. Um, so I believe someone got to him and told him, "Hey, you got to do this." So
Do we know anything about Ray Epps? Is Ray Epps being charged with anything? Is he gone through any court processes at all? Or
no, I think he's in what do you call it, witness protection or something like that.
wow,
They
that
tried to blame me for everything that he did. They wanted me to be the fall guy because, in my opinion, he is like the main Fed there that day who
yeah.
helped orchestrate it all. Well, not orchestrate, but like the general on the field that was telling everybody what to do, where to go. He was there pointing and putting people in positions. I mean, I saw him actually like go, "Hey, you go over here, you go over here. This is how you do that," and teaching people how to do stuff. And that same guy was it the night before or whatever had told people, "Hey, tomorrow let's go into the Capitol," and people were like, "No, you're crazy. Like you're Fed." But at the end of the day, they try to put it all on me, And my lawyer, my first lawyer, he goes, "Man, they really want you bad," and I didn't believe that. Like I was like, "Oh, that's bullshit." And then the very first day of the January 6th committee, hearing they had on TV, the very first episode or whatever you want to call it, the very first day of the trial was about Trump and me. And when I saw that, I go, "Yep, all right, they want me for some reason. They've had their eye on me." Um, you know, and that's crazy because I'm like literally like one of the most boring people in the world to follow. I sit around, I like to ride my bike, I like to read books. and I'm pretty chill, but they think I'm this crazy guy. And I don't know. I don't know if I should be like scared or flattered. It's a little odd. But as now that I can look back and I've talked to a lot of these other J6ers or whatever, they've all come to me and said that the FBI all they did was ask about if I knew me. Like almost everybody was asked if they knew me, if they had experience like hanging out with me, what I was like. They were trying to get people to flip on me to make up stories. They were able to get one guy to make up a story saying that I had a gun there that day. And it was all over the New York Times. And they were trying to just jet up whatever they could to make me the ultimate bad guy and to, put me away forever. I guess I've done something right because I got them scared enough to do
Yeah.
that.
My goodness. Yeah. I mean, I would have thought Alex Jones or Enrique or Nick Fuentes or something like that. But yeah, that's crazy. They're asking about you.
Yeah.
Um, well, I mean, God bless you, my friend. I know that we're coming close to an hour here, so we're going to be ending pretty soon. And of course, we're not going to be getting to all of these questions, but I guess where I can end this is unfortunately, I voted for Obama the second term. Unfortunately, I also voted for Trump twice, or three times actually. Um, I pay attention to as many people as I possibly can. Of course, also working and doing music. It's kind of hard to stay in touch with everybody's channels and their videos and stuff, but I've watched a little bit of here and there Trump. I watched a little bit of QAnon stuff. I watched Charlie Kirk stuff. I've watched Candace Owens, Nick Fuentes, and I see what's going on in the world. I see what's going on in America. I see what has happened with you, our January Sixers. Um, I guess my question would be is, and also they're trying to scare us with this whole like 3-eye atlas thing. Um, where do you see the world heading?
I mean, and like 5 years, 10 years, or just period. I mean, because the
Um,
period, I mean, I'm a religious man. I believe that Jesus is my Lord and Savior. I believe in the Bible. So for me, I know what, you know, what it says, at the end. So, I know where it's going. But until then, things are going to get worse. I do think that with AI, with these struggle for power and these superpowers all over the world, right now, you've got China constantly making threats to Taiwan. You've got uh, Israel trying to completely go to war with Iran. It's starting to happen again right now today.
mhm,
Things are going to get crazy, and you know, eventually there's going to be an antichrist that comes to, and people are going to think that's the actual Messiah.
mhm,
There's a lot of things that are going to happen. People need to get right with God, and you need to make sure that your family is. And you also, because times are going to get worse, you need to make sure that you can take care of yourself and your family when shit does get bad, and get educated and really just pay attention and take life seriously because you know it's better to be prepared for the worst than just that happen and you're just sitting there with looking up the sky going, I don't know what to do now. It's too late then. So I think things are going to get worse before they get better, but we always win in the end. So
that is one of my questions as well as so you do believe that God will intervene?
yeah, 100%.
I like that. I do like that. I like to think the same thing. I'm a huge believer in God, and
I mean, you can't walk outside and not say that God does not exist.
everything's too perfect. Everything's way too perfect. Everything's way too vast. Yeah, it has to have all been created.
Everything has been created by God, and you look at the breakdown of plants and the DNA sequences and all this stuff, and there's this pattern that is universal,
Mhm.
that only one creator could have done, and it's not, an accident. We're not here because two fucking rocks were going fast through space and hit each other. No, that's called a fucking car crash.
Yeah.
And no one comes out of that. You don't fucking have a car crash and then another car gets born down the road. and that's not how Lamborghinis are made, you know. So
Yeah.
this whole idea that the Big Bang Theory, that's fucking retarded. You
Yep.
know, there is a Big Bang, and if it's you and a chick, and then you have a child, that's about it. You know,
Mhm. Yeah, and that's another thing too, is that you can create another human being who can grow up to have its own personality and character. It's magic, I think, and, I just think that everything is too perfect and beautiful to have not been to have been an accident in the universe. It just doesn't make
everybody
sense to me.
everybody needs to read Propaganda by Edward Bernays, Media Control by Noam Chomsky. You need to read up on just the art of propaganda in general, so you can prepare yourself for all this stuff. You know, as AI becomes more prevalent and gets better and better. Just in the last 6 months since Grok's been out, it's already gotten 10 times better, you know, as far as it's the that image creating that it does. It
Mhm.
went from being able to animate these pictures to now they're making full on movies that look real as hell. And
Yeah.
it's going to be hard out there. It's going to be an information war. And the only people that are going to be able to survive it with any sanity, the ones smart enough to understand and see through all that shit. So, you know, people need to really educate themselves on what's happening and try to get as many people around them to see the truth.
Yeah.
We need more people to have, you know, that veil removed. More people with the glasses on from they live. If not, it's going to be a rough ride. And you know, like I said, every day's a psyop. So you have to be able to fight that with knowledge, and you've got to be smarter than everyone else out there around you, because if not, you're going to get eaten up.
Yeah, 100%. If you can break free, you gotta break free. I know a lot of people say that you really can't reach these people sometimes, they're just too far gone. But, if you can, you can. If you can't,
I
just
mean,
pray for them, I guess.
I've got emailed from people telling me that, you know, they hate me, they hope I die. And you have one of two choices when that happens. You can respond and like and go, fuck you, you faggot. I hope you eat shit and die. If I
Mhm.
see you out there, I'm gonna fucking shoot you in the head. Or you can go, man, I'm sorry you feel that way. You know, I'll pray for you.
Yeah.
And when someone sees that, it busts down that wall. And a lot of
Mhm.
times I've had this happen personally. Before I went to Boston, I had this guy that would send me all these nasty messages, and I didn't let it bother me. And instead of, you know, reacting the way that he wanted me to, and the way that he wanted me to prove to him that I was who he thought I was in his head. And I wasn't going to let that happen. I wanted
Yeah.
him to know who I really was. So I go, man, I'm sorry you feel that way. I'll pray for you, and hopefully, you know what? I'll give you my number and we can have a talk sometime. And you can ask me some questions, and maybe if you get to know me, you'll like me. And sure enough, you know, this has happened over the years. I've responded that way in kind, and they have let down their guard. And now some of them still believe, you know, there's some of them still Democrats in a sense, but they are not as psychotic and violent about me or other people anymore. Now they're kind of like, all right, I'll have to hear what they have to say, and I won't just judge them based on they're part of this group or they're a Republican or a conservative or whatever. I'll actually not listen to the mainstream narrative about whatever these people are saying, and I'll wait until I hear you specifically say it. And I've got some other ones that have converted, so to say, and or you know, and they've become friends over the years. So there is an opportunity, and love and kindness will always outweigh and destroy um, these psychos that come out there with hate. You know, a lot of these people are angry because they've never had anything good in their life.
Mhm.
And if you look at most of these people on the left, they wake up every day angry. They're looking for something to be mad about. And at the end of the day, I think they really want to be happy, and they want to live a fun, fulfilled, free life. But they've just been, you know, brainwashed for so long, and a lot have been mistreated over the years. So when you start showing kindness, that opens up a lot of eyes, and it also gives you that door. It opens a door and lets you come in and speak to them, and it gives you many opportunities to share, you know, God, to talk about the country as a whole and what we should be and where we, you know, need to be. And you know, I think that's the easiest thing. You know,
Yeah.
everybody is quick to fight and quick to be angry and quick
Mhm.
to say, you know, messed up shit about one another. It's harder to sit there and take that time, and it takes self-respect, it takes patience, and it takes you know, you got to be humble. And that's what everybody needs to do, man. We got to humble ourselves, and we can't kill each other off because we have a disagreement about left and right. The more people understand that there is no such thing as a left or right, that it's us versus them, and them is evil. And I don't want to be on that side. I don't want to be
Yeah.
on the side of people who kill babies and think it's fun, or
Hmm.
that want to commit genocide and strip away your rights. God gave us this beautiful thing called life,
Hmm.
and we need to start showing God some respect, and treating life beautiful and with respect.
I 100% agree. And it's something that I actually have been doing myself past couple of years is, if I do run into one of those kind of people, because being a Democrat state, people don't like a white rapper. They think it's a racist thing for me to do. But yeah, if I get the hate mail or the messages or whatever, I usually just say, "Hey, God bless you. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day." And some people come back and like, "Hey, I didn't mean to say that to you. I don't know, having a bad day or something." But no, it's certainly certainly a great way to think about it. I hope that maybe it reaches other people to start doing the same thing. Don't give the enemy what they think you are. Give them God, basically. Give them the light. But
Don't let
yeah,
someone who doesn't know you define you.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. Very well put. Before we go, I wanted to ask you one last question, maybe a little bit of a lighter tip, if you don't mind. Do you like hip hop, Joe? Do you like hip hop?
Yeah, I mean, I don't listen to a lot of this newer stuff. I mean, uh I liked older stuff. I like
Yeah.
Wu-Tang.
Yeah.
I like Tupac and Biggie. Then I like KRS-One. I like The Roots.
Yep.
I like a lot of shit out there that's good. I just don't like this new mumble stuff where
Yeah.
all they do is talk about murder, rape, basically just degeneracy. And
Mhm.
I think there's good ways to do hip hop, positive ways. We've been there before, but right now evil is trying to push us in a direction where everything we see and listen to or see and do is degenerate and messed up and against what God wants us to do. So, there's some hip hop out there that I do like.
Yeah. I would agree. I like the older school hip hop way better. If you listen to my hip hop, you'll see it's much more old school. Have you seen the Bryson Gray and Roger Stone music video?
Mm.
Very funny. I think it's awesome having Roger Stone in the background of the music video. But you say you're on the East Coast. You in Florida, right? I'm in
Yeah, yeah,
Massachusetts, in Florida.
I'm in Daytona Beach.
So I was wondering, just putting out there, just thing maybe we could talk about in the future. But if I were to ever make my way over to you, would you be interested in being in a Cri Text music video?
Sure, why not, man?
Maybe a couple of Proud Boys. We'll see.
Yeah, I'm still trying to get Kanye to get me in one of his videos. I just want to sit there on one of those videos and just like act like I'm doing something cool. I don't care.
Yeah, dude. Bring out the AR, right?
Yeah. Well, actually, no, I can't. I'm a felon, so
Listen,
I'll
Joe.
I'll, I'll just have a picture of like a stick figure AR that I drew on a piece of white paper, and I'll hold it and go bang 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 bang.
Yeah, I like that a lot. That's a good idea. Listen, Joe. I cannot thank you enough for being here for this first experience of mine. My first episode of my first show I'm coming up with. And everything that you've done for our country, I have been emailing and messaging a lot of people to get an interview with. And out of everybody that I've emailed and messaged, I think that there's nobody else who has more experience in really trying to make not just America, but the entire world a better place. From your military service to speaking the truth on Infowars, to being on the front lines with Proud Boys as well, defending our citizens against people like Antifa, and then unfortunately being locked up for being at a protest. But I really can't thank you enough. To me, you are probably the alive today, the biggest American hero that I know. The most utmost respect to you. Again, thank you so much again for being here. And I really hope that we get to talk again, maybe meet again in the future.
Yeah, of course, man. I appreciate it. That was nice of you to say. Means a lot. So Thanks for having me on, man. And I wish all the best for you in the future in your endeavors, and I hope it's a success.
One last thing before we go, I want to give you a shot as well. Is there anything new that you're doing? I mean, we haven't seen this since January 6th and Proud Boys. Are you doing anything new?
So I am gonna have a book coming out,
Okay.
probably the first of the year, a documentary. I've worked on numerous documentaries since I've been home, and this will be a book about the seditious five, so the top five Proud Boy leaders that were framed for, orchestrating this whole thing. We're in together doing a book, and then hopefully a speaking tour and all that stuff after that. And we're going through. I'm suing the DOJ, and we're involved in all these different lawsuits. So there's a lot of stuff that's going to happen. We're hoping that this coming year will be an opportunity for President Trump to right a lot of wrongs, expose a lot of things that happened that day. Um, I'm not going to hold my breath, but it is going to be, something that we're focused on is getting their attention, and hopefully having the White House have people like us over there to talk with him about what happened that day.
Hell yeah, man. Well, we're gonna be rooting for you. Again, thank you very much, Joe. So we're gonna be staying tuned on was it Bo Jigs on X?
Yeah, so
All right. All right. We'll be staying tuned. We'll be looking out for the book. Again, thank you so much for being here. Thank you everybody else for watching. We really appreciate it here on the new show, Cri Text Unscripted. But until the next one, everybody, we love you all. Stay happy, stay healthy, stay humble. And until the next one, peace out, y'all.